Trochu ću beznajan. Surte. Reverend clergy, ladies and gentlemen, arigato. I'd like to thank the members of the Armenian Genocide Commemorative Committee of Northern California, David Ojakyan, Seva Kubranyan, Hachik Kazyan, and Ara Makasjan, for inviting me today to speak to you on the importance of educating people about the Armenian Genocide and about crimes against humanity in general. However, I must say, after hearing this afternoon's speakers, I really can't do a better job than they have already. I think you should all be very proud of your children and how you've raised them. Abris. I feel especially honored to have been invited, given that Northern California is home to at least two really important organizations whose representatives are here today that are devoting enormous amounts of energy and resources towards teaching all ages about genocide. That is the Genocide Education Project, directed by Roxanne Makasjan, and the Alliance for the Study of Holocaust and Genocide at Sonoma State, which was headed by Christine Davidian for many years. I am indebted to both these organizations for helping me rethink the significance of the genocide, both as a teacher and as a human being. Today, I would like to share some of my thoughts and reasons as to why it is important to teach the Armenian Genocide in particular, and about crimes against humanity in general. As a scholar of Armenian studies, the genocide is fundamental to everything we do, from where centers of Armenian studies are located, to the types of documentation that are available, to the obstacles that we face due to political pressure of the denialist agenda. And as someone married to a descendant of genocide survivors, the effects of the genocide on one's family history and personal narrative are ever present, including, as Tamar stated earlier, the challenge of informing our children of what happened. When do you tell them? How do you tell them? What do you tell them? A story that unfolds over many years, that grows and deepens as they grow, and that you hope strengthens and emboldens them, and doesn't stifle and burden them. And so, in a professional and a personal way, the importance of the Armenian Genocide has been all too self-evident. But what I have come to realize is the significance of the Armenian Genocide, not for Armenians, but for others. Because the Armenian Genocide did not affect Armenians alone. Without tackling the Armenian Genocide as genocide, one cannot write, understand, or teach the history of modernity. Without tackling the Armenian Genocide as genocide, one cannot write, understand, or teach the history of the United States of America. Without tackling the Armenian Genocide as genocide, one cannot write, or understand, or teach the history of World War I. And without tackling the Armenian Genocide as genocide, one cannot write or understand or teach the history of the Middle East. And without tackling the Armenian Genocide as genocide, one cannot write, understand, or teach, as much as certain people would want to, the history of the Ottoman Empire and the Republic of Turkey. In other words, a lot of books and syllabi are going to have to be rewritten. The Armenian Genocide needs to be included and taught through all of these various aspects, and not just through the prism of Armenian history alone. I do not have any say of what gets taught in Turkey. That is a problem they will have to deal with. I do have good Turkish friends and colleagues who are struggling to force their fellow Turks to recognize and understand their own history. Not because they hate their country, but because they love it and want to see it be better than it is. A sign of true patriotism, for which they go unthanked at home. They give me hope, but they also remind me that they are not so hopeful, that they are not at the forefront of a movement, but lone individuals devoted to the principles of their academic trade. And recent events in the Republic of Turkey have unfortunately only confirmed their lack of hope. And I speak of just last week, the nationalization of all the churches within the Republic of Turkey. But they also see scholars, media, and politicians here in this country willfully ignorant of the past. Not because the information is not available, but because it is inconvenient. And while we may not have a say of what is done in Turkey, we do have a say about what is done here. And frankly, what really annoys me is that not only do we deny the tragedy of the Armenian Genocide, but we also deny the heroic efforts this country mounted to help the survivors. How many of our children learned that the United States conducted the largest relief effort ever in the history of humanity to this very day to help the victims of the Armenian Genocide, raising the equivalent of $1.5 billion, thanks to which many of us are here today? How many of our children know of the work of U.S. diplomats to ameliorate and report the condition of Armenians in the Ottoman Empire? How many of our children know that Babe Ruth not only hit a lot of home runs, but also gave one of his bats to be auctioned to help the orphans that reached our shores? This is our history and formed part of what made us a beacon of hope and refuge to the world, and our children should know that and be proud of it. But this is not just academic. Today, when you mention the Middle East, most people shrug and say that it has always been a mess. Well, so too has the rest of the world. Let us not forget that the Middle East gave us the alphabet, gave us the development of agriculture, gave us the development of the grape for wine, gave us 4 world religions: Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Zoroastrianism. It was from there that Europeans first recovered the traces of Greek philosophy. It produced the poetry of Ferdowsi, Rustavelli, Rumi, and Sayat Nova, the love songs of the Ghazal, the great oud and santur masters, the spices that turn food into cuisine. Yes, the Middle East has always been a mess of languages, faiths, and peoples. But mess is such stuff that life is made on. And it is that mess of which Armenians have always been an integral part that gave the Middle East its dynamism, its fascination, and its power. Today, we look at a Middle East fractured and decrepit, a mess, not because of its vitality, but because of its drive towards self-destruction. We look at Syria, northern Iraq, and Artsakh, and we see parallels with the events of a century ago. We see a Yazidi woman carrying her baby across a desert landscape, and immediately we think of that iconic picture of a young Armenian mother carrying her child over what seems to be the exact same desolate plain. But what is happening today is not parallel to what happened a century ago. It is not similar to what happened. It is not a mirror image. It is a continuation and expansion of the program of ethno-religious cleansing of the Middle East that the CUP government of the Ottoman Empire instigated in 1915. To view what is happening today as a sudden and isolated event misunderstands the process that began with the attempt to eliminate the Armenian, Greek, and Assyrian populations of the Ottoman Empire. Any analysis of the current situation that seeks to leave history to the historians in order to ignore it is fundamentally founded on mistaken assumptions. You can deny, distort, and devalue history all you want, but you cannot escape it. Knowledge. Knowledge is the goal of education, but knowledge by itself is not enough. Why should we study crimes against humanity such as the genocide? To prevent future genocides, people say. Yes, knowing what happened is a first step. But knowing what happened to the Armenians didn't stop Hitler from perpetrating the Holocaust. It was one of his Knowing about Rwanda did not prevent what is happening today in Syria. The U.S. ambassador to the UN is one of the most knowledgeable people about genocides, yet the results are the same. Preventing genocide is more complicated than just knowing about it. But if it is not enough, why bother? Why remember? Is it really worthwhile digging up the past if we cannot secure a better future? Shouldn't we just deal with what's happening now? I don't have any easy answers, but I can share with you why I think it is important. The past doesn't just inform us about the present, nor is it simply a form of nostalgia. The past, our past, is meant to challenge us, to make us look at ourselves and ask us who we are now. It does not solve all problems, but forces us to seek the path true to ourselves. It does not prevent us from stumbling, but it does help us find our way. As some of you may know, tonight will be the third night of Passover, the feast that recounts the journey of the nation of Israel from bondage in Egypt to the Promised Land, which they did not see. For Armenians in Jerusalem, today marks the feast of the entry into Jerusalem, when Jesus began his painful journey of leading humanity from damnation to salvation. 1 year ago today, the 1.5 million victims of the Armenian Genocide were made saints. No longer to be mourned as victims, they have finally completed their difficult journey home. May we not forget these journeys, not because they were better than we are, not because we should lament their fates, not because they simply stand as something that happened, but because they show us that we are not alone, and that although the journey is not easy, and that we will not be perfect, we must try to and can live up to the responsibility that has been given to us. Thank you very much.